Chapter 8. What Really Matters. Fear, an absolute shock. Returning to New Appaloosa wasn't exactly as colorful and happy as we thought. That greeting was just about the opposite of what we could have expected. Keep them down and check their bags, now! A rude red earth pony in pretty heavy armor commanded Scattershot, pointing some weapon at her just as we entered town, which I thought was on a good way with me until now.
What's the bucking idea? You raiders now?
She looked at him very angrily as I've ever seen her.
Your friend here is suspicious of murder over the last night, so you better do as we say, and that's anything we've got. Understood?
Compound looked at me and at Scattershot, then to the other pony here who seemed to be overseeing this point. The purple earth pony trotted over to me and took my bag, and started looking through it. All my precious stuff. The ties in there. Moments passed of them searching most of her apparel and bags. Even any goods we got from that underground facility was deemed suspicious. Well, what proof do you have? We were almost gone all day. I growled at that guy. This was getting ridiculous, but I knew if I started a fight here, this whole town would get on to me. And with some townfolk here, having been supportive of me so far, that would be a bad move.
Well, we got note on a dead body this morning from, and I quote, the dangerous New Alicorn.
It quickly dawned to me that some pony in this town was trying to frame me, but I had nothing to prove my innocence here, and I did understand how I may be suspicious to them.
That's horse manure. We were together for almost 2 days, and couldn't have been around to even do that.
Compound was shaking her head, and I was getting nervous. I usually didn't do well in these pressure situations, were I honest. We're just passing through to Manhattan anyway, but I suppose, if you want to hoof with it, we'll be willing to lend it, and aside of that, if there is a shady alicorn in here, you may need me. I was playing to the hierarchy of these guards. I was sure he didn't want to be the guy who had to report to his superior that they sent the only hope away who could handle another alicorn in this town.
Well, you can ask us if we come by again someday. We best be going, Leaf.
Scattershot gave me a wink, and I thought about my possibilities for a compromise here. Exactly 8 seconds later, the overseeing pony raised his voice at us.
If push comes to shove, you might, but don't pull any...
I took the book from the bag that allowed me to communicate with its other half. I've dubbed it the walkie-reedy and told him how it worked, interrupting his speech, but I didn't care anymore at this point. I finally ended my idea of a smooth compromise by giving it to him. You ponies can't trust other ponies' words and are scared of ponies like me and my friends? Then I ain't bothering. If you got some alicorn turning your neighborhood into hot cinders, let me know. I tore a page out of the book and gave it to them. A few more words that I couldn't hear and didn't want to hear was all he gave me as we got our things and left after much debate. Ponies like these were what sometimes made me doubt what I was after, but my gut instincts told me the wastelands would get the best of them quicker than they might like.
I'm betting a round of cider that they're gonna come to regret that decision. Damn traitors.
Compound put a hoof around me.
Truth be told, if you do that to honest pony folk, odds are you might end with a bullet between your eyes from some pony.
Scattershot rolled her eyes, looking back at New Appaloosa as we left it behind us. I was curious who in that place had wanted to get me into trouble so badly, and why. I didn't bother much about it. All I cared about was reaching Manhattan with my sweet fillies here. But getting there was gonna be like riding a slimy pickle. You need to be ready in more than one way. The wind was picking up, and it wasn't my fault even. Some change in weather? I didn't know, but I did enjoy the breeze brushing through my mane, which I hadn't gotten to even wash in ages. Our first major thing blocking our travel through Manhattan was a range of mountains with valleys rumored to be filled with raiders, ghoul ponies or other things that could end a pony here. We had to cross this to reach a rail track that would lead us to Manhattan. I was pretty suspicious about the intel in the mine, depicting a secret army being built somewhere in Manhattan, within the Ministry of Morale. It was awful not having as much equip as I liked, but we had to make do with what we had. I was no goat, and going uphill along the side of a set of mountains here certainly got to my stamina more than I'd like to admit. My breathing turned into heavy gasps, like from a steam engine, but the view made more than up for it. Wide valleys besides us, grassy plains, and it looked like no pony was here. We climbed up further until I heard something loud.
What the fuck is that?
Scattershot was looking around, and just as we were about to give up, a large shadow of a helicopter flew over us. Loud beeping, and a bright searchlight in our face later, we were found out.
What a day.
Compound looked at me as I got my shield up. What is your business in these mountains? A guy in heavy-looking armor, covering his entire body, power armor as it was called, was interrogating us. We're passing through Manhattan. It is sort of dangerous territory, but we might strike you a deal. Give us a hoof in it, and we'll give you a lift as close as we can at least. We nodded in unison, and the helicopter ponies let us in, and we started talking. Compound looked around, kinda, like she wasn't meant to be here.
So what are we in for doing?
Scattershot started to ask away immediately. If you can handle yourself in the wastelands, trekking and all, maybe you can give us a hoof in a matter. See, it's only the two of us, and it's kinda hassle to fly through here, with ghouls and raiders, both firing at us. We could really do with a pony to clear the way while we navigate this place. What do you say? Also, meet Pilot Eagle Eye. I'm Rusty. Okay, sounds cool. As long as you don't have to fight innocent ponies, I'm in. I told him what I thought and nodded, feeling like this would be a win-win situation for all of us.
Sure, we just had a little rough day and all. Some nice ponies for a change is a welcome one.
Compound let out some overdue rant as I felt.
Seems fair game to me.
Scattershot sat down, and the helicopter lifted off. Moments later, we found a small wreckage of a wooden carriage. Nothing suspicious.
So where are you from these parts?
The pilot looked back at us, and all we could really tell him is how we just lost our place to stay in New Appaloosa.
Been hearing a lot of shady stuff from that place, which is why we don't go there. Too many ways to end up dead.
We crossed another ridge of mountains. 4 wooden shacks, and ponies around them. Seconds later, one of them brought up a long and metal thing with an explosive projectile. A missile launcher. If they got lucky with a hit, then we'd have more than a little hole here to deal with. Raiders wanting to have this ride for themselves, as I assumed, at least. The loud clank sound of that thing being fired was heard very clearly as I looked outside, watching the projectile getting closer. I needed a spell that would let me shoot many small projectiles. A single hit would cause the missile to detonate early. I cast a volley of magical bullets and allowed a heavy explosion later. Our ride got shook up a little bit, but nothing worse.
Bucking raiders, always messing with us.
The raiders below didn't want to waste any more missiles, as it seemed, since they started to give up on us. But they didn't issue shooting a few bullets at this helicopter, but it was pretty solid, and only a few bumpy sounds was all it got them. Spellbook kind of guy, huh? The guy in armor observed what was pretty much on point to my combat skills, plus a few nifty ways to place and modify explosives. Rusty looked at us a little more closely until he realized something very prominent about our group. So wait, none of you has any rifles on you for distance combat? We shook our head in unison, but Scattershot did show her trusty shotgun.
I do the shooting around here.
As we passed that ridge ahead of us with the raiders, we kept soaring. It was so interesting being up here, almost like actual flying. But my flying skills were a little bit of aerial sailing at best, but that's about as much as I could muster. Hiding my wings for so long did result in me losing practice. Besides, levitating myself was a lot more fancy. On a more serious thought, I wasn't sure if these other two ponies here would throw a fit if they found out that an alicorn was a passenger on their little metal bird here. Didn't want to take that chance for now, at least.
So that's why you didn't take out the raiders, huh?
Eagle Eye looked back at us, and I, for the second time, felt the need to burst out at some pony, but this time I followed through. I wasn't the best at killing others unless I really had to. They were pony folk to me. They are ponies. Even if they tried killing us, doesn't mean I have to return the favor. Our deal was to only get you through.
Touché.
He raised a hoof to his chin, probably wondering how we are still alive, but I was willing to bet a cider he could lose his sanity if he saw just how far I could go with my spells. Loud beeping from the front caught all of our attention as sirens and everything went off.
Landworms, buck!
These creatures were known as Tatzelworms before the war, and were known for being impenetrable by any form of magic. But the magical radiation not only made them a lot bigger, but also gave them an appendage on their back, which they could move and everything. But that was most used for throwing things at other stuff that they either saw as prey or as any sort of annoyance. Either way, whatever they deemed edible, they ate. The ground below us started to form a wide trail of rising sand and rubble. His head was probably a little bigger than our own ride here. It was going to need some serious trickery or moderate firepower to pin this. His tail was carrying a fat, pony-sized boulder as it rose above ground, and a fling of it later, that thing was coming straight for us. I didn't get much of a breather, but managed to barely catch it by levitating it and dropping it down. This guy kept trying for 3 more tries until he had his fill of wasted efforts, and went all in by sticking his head out and opening his mouth. Inside was not only his tongue, but 4 smaller tentacle-like things, meant to pull in any quick prey. The pilot tried dodging, but outrunning them wasn't something he could do, as it seemed. They were wrapping around the metal hull and pulled us towards his mouth. I had nothing else other than teleporting away.
How do you like them apples, Punk?
Scattershot shot multiple rounds at one of them, and goopy, green blood erupted all over. Compound, on the other hoof, got a bottle from her saddlebag. I recognized that. This was the one she had warned me about being only for something you really want to have a bad day. And this seemed, at least sounding by her description, to be fitting perfectly for this radiated worm. I hoped it would end his misery.
Have a sip of this.
She accurately managed to fling the little vial into the worm's wide-open mouth. I didn't think it would do something to a creature this big, but boy was I proven wrong. His skin started to become dry and crust up, and his motion slowly died out. His body started to crumble, and what was left was a pile of dead and dry meat.
It's a very special kind of salt.
She grinned innocently, and I pet her mane. I was generally impressed here, and she leaned into my hoof. You 3 certainly aren't normal wastelanders, but heck, that probably explains why you're alive. He chuckled heartily, but his captain wasn't exactly so joyful. He was nervously flicking some switches up front and sighed finally.
That thing damaged our rudder. We're gonna have to land and fix that if we don't want to become a sitting duck.
Eagle Eye took about 9 seconds to land right next to the creature that we just killed. I wasn't sure if they'd still take us to Manhattan, but I was relieved we were still alive and not worm fodder. It was slowly getting darker. We didn't expect to even be out here, but since someone in New Appaloosa got us kicked out, we had to deal with this. The 2 armored ponies here were tinkering around and did welding and such with their machine, aka things I didn't know jack about. I didn't know you could use them on an enemy, but that was all my experience accounted for. All we had to do was make sure our still friends here didn't get into any trouble while they were distracted. But there was absolutely nothing here. Pretty sure that worm ain't would ever got close to this place anyhow, so I wasn't worried here.
You think we can follow them up on their deal?
Compound was whispering as she got close to me.
I hope so. If not, we'll deal with them.
Scattershot whispered back, and I nodded in agreement with her statement. If push came to shove, we may be able to overwhelm these guys if they did give us any sass or became a threat of sort. After a while, Rusty brought something from their storage. Plywood and logs. He threw them down.
Now where the buck are my matches?
It was about to go back into the depot, but a fireball of mine quickly changed that plan. We all sat down, since flying at night would have been a lot riskier, and decided to spend the night here in the open. We were only 5 ponies, sure, but I felt a lot comfier out here with them than the ponies in New Appaloosa. Still, I wondered a lot about what kind of group of ponies has helicopters and power armor just like that. Then again, those suits really didn't look like something I'd want to wear for fashion's sake.
What a day, but heck, thanks to you, we are still alive, and our bird can still fly. That would have gone so sour if we didn't have you ponies aboard.
The brown-coated earth pony took his helmet off, revealing himself. His sky blue mane looked squashed from the helmet, but I was relieved they were happy with us. But heck, how do you learn your stuff, like all of you? His friend did the same, a gray-colored earth pony with a red mane.
Well, I grew up with a shotgun, so I got some practice. I, was, kind of the experimental girl, so I started trying things out, and curiosity became talent.
I could hear her hesitating, opening up about her ex-raider status, but me? I had to either horse around like I could ride the skies, or come clean. Well, I'm from before the war, so I have plenty of training and practice with magic, as well as about 200 years of being in the wasteland, so I know how to keep myself alive somehow. I slid down my saddlebag. And yes, I'm an alicorn from that time. I opened my wings and grinned, somehow fearing I'd get shot.
What? Wow. Just when you think you got to know this world down and all, you don't. But don't worry, we ain't hunt crazy after alicorns like some of them ponies out there. And besides, none of those crazy ones would be clambering up mountains like that and have friends with ponies in the first place.
He giggled, and for the second time, I was completely baffled. Not only did I not get shot, but he was cool and smart about it, too. I started to like these guys more than I thought.
Must have seen the world inside out then, huh?
Rusty grinned and patted me on the back, and I nodded.
But where you lot from, then?
Scattershot turned around the question game, and probably was more curious about this than me.
We part of a training guild. Like, we bring stuff from town to town. Bring ponies what they need to make world go round. Least, what's left of it, but as you saw, ain't the safest job, but least you get paid.
He grinned and trotted to the storage, but returned with a barrel, plus some cups. And only now did I manage to put together what this was, seeing the emblem on the side. Manhattan, blast from the past, as it read. The kind of drink that would make you go batshit insane from just a few sips, but I like the burn of it. Cheers!
Cheers, everybody!
We toasted together to just celebrate life and the wastelands. Even if they weren't the glory and joy they used to be, they were home and taught you other things like carefulness and fear, as well as the value of true friendship, and this here moment was truest essence of that. After a few cups, I started to feel giddy and opened my saddlebag to get out my pip-buck.
Huh? He had that around the whole time, and only now gets it out?
Compound giggled as I turned on the radio function of this device and slid it onto my hoof. I did sorta know the song they were playing and started to sing along, and more importantly, dance along. I just did what my body told me after I had some more booze. But some ponies drive my patience way too much, and keep asking if my mind is out of touch. At least I don't run a rule on my own, and warm some mold and smelly throat. Whoa! Rusty started to clap along, and after a few more cups, I sat down next to Compound, feeling more lightheaded than a hot air balloon. But I dug this feeling. It made me not think of things that I had not wanted to think of for a while. But no matter how drunk I got, I never forgot my mission. Come to think of it, those who once taught me things I know now, I don't know where most of these ponies went. Even if they could see me right now, though, I wouldn't give a damn about what they thought of me. I'd get Equestria restored in my very own way. But I had to make sure not to go overboard with booze tonight. Since we were out in the open and had to sleep here, we had to make sure to organize nightly shifts, so if something went down, we'd be ready.
I'd say Leaf gets the 5th shift. Me and Scatter first and second?
But I'm the shiftiest pony since ponies could shift the sun and moon. I raised a hoof in protest, but Compound quickly laid a hoof around me and I calmed down. Like some magic that I didn't know about, but it was sweet. I only now realized her idea as she sat down with me. Scattershot lay down with us. Eagle and Rusty quickly lay down as well, while I got my blanket out, and me and Compound curled up on it.
Now, I'm on guard duty, and watching you, my pre-war relic.
She giggled and stroked my mane and nuzzled my nose. I couldn't do anything about it. I just let her do whatever she wanted with me. I was drunk, but her ways, I could feel them like sunshine in my face, and I enjoyed every second of it, until my eyes became heavy and sleep became a necessity to my body. We lived today, despite a large setback, but that setback didn't feel that much of a setback now. We had another, and as long as we did, we were fine, and I believed we always would be.